Welcome. It's Tuesday.
We're
Thanks for
live.
joining us today. We are live. We were just talking about the lighting in our respective areas. See, I have to do mine in the kitchen when I'm home because one, it's the only place I can really find out what my kids are doing at the same time paying attention to you. But there's nice light that comes in through the window.
Yeah.
But when we're in the office, there's no good lighting.
There's no good lighting.
We're gonna have to invest in those, those light things that make people look good. We're low tech though, so that'll probably never happen. Thanks for joining us today. Suzanne and I, we're going to talk about the Northwest Jazz Festival. We had made an announcement yesterday that unfortunately the Northwest Jazz Festival is canceled for 2020 in August. The Chamber of Commerce is we are the coordinators of the festival. So we do everything from all of the logistical aspects to getting the volunteers ready, the marketing, the contracts out to different entities. We do a little bit of everything for that festival from start to finish. So we had to make that announcement yesterday, and we figured, you know what, today, instead of trying to get some guests on to talk about phase one, let's talk first about the festival, and then the rest of the week we can talk about how phase one, which started today for New York State, how that is happening throughout the week and throughout our region. If you didn't know, phase one, we talked about that yesterday, began today. So a lot of our member businesses that fell into those categories were able to get their safety plans together, get their plans of how they're opening, how they're sanitizing, how they're going to interact with customers, and get them out to the public and start today. And many of them have successfully. So if you are a business who is not in phase one, we encourage you to go to our website to find out information and look up the phase one information so you can kind of see where you're going to go with phase two and what you're going to have to pay attention to. So actually, before we bring in our guest today, Suzanne, I had asked her before we started, why the heck do you have the fish behind you?
Well, it gets lonely in here, first of all, by myself, and I can only say so much to myself, but it helps to cover my mess. So I named them David and Goliath. I figured it's going to be nice this weekend, so get out now that fishing's open on phase one. You can social distance, you can fish.
Yeah, see, I knew there was a reason why we didn't take those fish over to the storage unit. That was the reason to take care of our messes. Usually I just look in the camera and see the mess behind me and make a comment and try to figure it out. But
I've been real busy today, by the way. Mel stopped by because she needed something notarized. So she brought us a donation for the food table, which was wonderful. So nice of her. And she also brought us 2 gifts.
Oh, yes.
I did tell her I would share. She says, I don't know anything, but I'll share with you, Jennifer. I've been drinking my water all day. Don't worry.
Oh, good. Excellent. Well, good. I can't wait to come in tomorrow. And it's so hard not being able to see you every day in person, but we'll have to do it. We'll have to, make do with this.
I do feel sorry for the people who come to the window and knock, because we jump out the window. It's like, oh, person, here I am.
We do. Talk to me. I know. It's so funny. You open up the curtain, you're like, hi. Even Sean, our mailman, we get so excited to see Sean because it's another human being. Hopefully over the next few weeks, we'll be able to see more and more people and also integrate that into our office, because our office is actually one of those places that is going to have to be phased in, and we're going to have to figure out how we take care of visitors and things like that. So something we have to take in consideration as well. Well, we wanted to talk today about the Jazz Festival and what, had to be canceled. And we thought we would bring our friend Tony Zambito, who is the music director of the Northwest Jazz Festival. We thought, and among many other things, but we thought we'd bring him on as well, so we can just kind of give you the rundown of this festival. There's a lot of emotion with this festival. It's been going on for 19 years, and it's not an easy decision. So thanks, Tony, for joining us.
Well, it's just great to be here with you both.
Tony does so much for the festival. He is hired to help us with the music coordinating. Now, what does that mean? That means trying to organize and facilitate and schedule the 150 musicians that it takes to put on this festival, from international musicians to local musicians, everything in between. And Tony does that. He goes through all of the music applications from September until December, goes through them all, figures out who the top talent's going to be at the festival every year. And he had that task this year, and unfortunately also had to notify all of those musicians that it wouldn't be taking place this year.
Yeah, that was, a disappointment for many. And I think, they all expected it, but it doesn't really ease the disappointment. I think, it's something that many musicians locally, regionally, and I'm glad to say, even more on an international basis, the festival has grown its reputation as a place that international musicians want to play. And so we had some spectacular musicians all lined up from all over the area and internationally. And unfortunately, we've got to go with the cancellation.
We did. And, our festival is not the only major jazz festival that had to cancel around the country. There's several other major festivals that had to either postpone and hopefully do it in the fall, or cancel completely and focus on 2021.
Yeah, that's true, Jennifer. I've been in contact with several other jazz festivals, including the Newport Jazz Festival, the Monterey Jazz Festival, San Jose Jazz Festival, and they all struggled with this decision. And, they all had to make the same call on this, to the disappointment of their communities and to the jazz artists as well. But when you really boil it down, there is really plenty of difficulty to pull this off. And let's also look at the artists. Some of the artists, we're talking about having to get on a plane. Some are in their 60s and 70s, and they're just not, in that age group right now where this is something that they can do.
Right. And, the longer we waited to make this decision, the more it would actually impact our musicians as well. So it was a decision that needed to be made at this time. A lot of people think August, well, that's 2 months away, 3 months away. Why are you making the decisions now? August is so far away. Well, if anybody who's anyone in the event industry, or somebody who plans events, plans things the size and magnitude of our event, knows that August is like it's next week. I mean, really, it's not far away in that event industry. You have contracts to deal with, volunteers to deal with, financial aspects to deal with, and a lot of things to think about. There are some contracts that our festival is going to have to still uphold. So many different decisions have to go into this. It's not something that's taken lightly.
Right. If you put this in the context too, if you look at Newport and you look at San Jose, I mean, those were scheduled in August. If you look at the Monterey Jazz Festival, that was the third week in September. So we're like right in the middle of all this. So we're not out of the ordinary in terms of how jazz festivals are having to make this decision. And many that I've talked to, whether they're a jazz festival, jazz club, or Performing Arts Center, are really setting their sights now on 2021, only because there's just the enormity of trying to follow the guidelines is such an enormous cost as well. So they really are setting their sights on 2021. So like our festival, we'll look at 2021, and Monterey is already scheduled 2021, and Newport, they're all canceling and postponing until 2021.
Sure. And, with our event, it takes $150,000, actually more than that, to run a world-class event with 5 stages, with all the musicians, with all the vendors. So, those are the things that start an entirely year in advance. And beginning of March is at the time when Suzanne and I would have been calling all of our sponsors that have committed but hadn't turned in their financial aspect yet, or are usually the ones that we have to call and say, hey, are you sponsoring again this year? Right when when this started happening, we were right at the beginning of that, and there was in no way Suzanne and I could start calling all of our businesses and asking where their funds were. And actually, some of the businesses had called us and notified us that they were not able to complete their sponsorship for the year. So we kind of saw this coming a couple months ago. We had some of the red flags up. And the fact where the Jazz Festival Board of Directors knew to postpone the fundraiser. This was all starting to happen in March, where the signs were kind of there that it might not be something that we wanted to happen. And of course, as the months we're able to get forth, it's a lot of other aspects that go into the hundreds of volunteers that we have that make this festival happen, the contracts, the sound and lighting, the financial aspect, the musicians, the logistics. So many things go into this, the marketing. So it is a very hard thing to wait and see. We've had some people that say, why can't you wait and see? Just wait and see. But it's not as easy as that. It sure isn't.
No, it's not. No, we've learned that from the other jazz festivals as well. You really have to make a decision months in advance. And when you look at Monterey, for example, this is months in advance to September, the third week in September. So they were kind of squeezed into a corner too as well. And one of the things that we talk about is, the impact on the artists and the impact on the community. And one of the things that we've been really excited about the last 3-4 years is just the number of fantastic jazz artists that we've been able to bring to this town of Lewiston, New York, and it's been amazing. And this year is going to be no exception. We can't make a call on what 2021 will look like exactly, but we were excited. I guess if there's a heartbreak in this thing, the heartbreak is that we fortuitously landed on the 100th birthday of Charlie Parker, and it doesn't get any bigger in jazz. It really doesn't. I mean, Charlie Parker was, as many of you know, in the jazz world, was the founder of bebop, if you will, and is on the Mount Rushmore, probably just only 3 names or 4 names in jazz. And we had lined up a wonderful project, Bird at 100, that included Vincent Herring and Bobby Watson and Gary Bartz, who can carry the mantle, if you will, of Charlie Parker since the 60s. And so we were really excited about that. And I know that outside of Lewiston, word was getting out that we happened to, make this happen for our festival, is to get 3 giants like that. So if there's a heartbreak, that's one of them. And then I would encourage fans out there to also look up several of the other artists that we were bringing in on an international basis. We had Miguel Zanan, who was coming in, who was a 8-time Grammy nominee and downbeat winner for Best Alto Saxophonist in 2019. And we had Sarah Gazaric coming in, who was a Grammy nominee for Best Jazz Vocal Album in 2019. So you could see we were really quite excited about it. So I think for all of us associated with the Northwest Jazz Festival, it's a little bit of a heartbreak that goes along with the rest of the community today.
Definitely. There are a lot of uncertainties in the event world coming up. We've seen a lot of events not be able to take place throughout May, some of them being canceled in June, July, and August. And I'm sure some will have to make that decision for even some of the fall dates. I think one of the things that is uncertain is, how do you control a size, an attendance, the size of our festival? We get between 35,000 and 40,000 people over the span of a day and a half. That is a lot of people. Mm-hmm. And we don't exaggerate when we say those numbers. I mean, that's how many people we get crammed into that village for the day and a half festival. And it's pretty amazing, but it's also a scary thing to think about when we're dealing with a worldwide pandemic. And how do you make sure that sanitary aspects are covered? And that's another part of this festival that we were unsure of going in. With the staff and volunteer force that we have, we're lucky to have a major sponsorship by the Modern Corporation and Modern Disposal Services. Mm-hmm. And they were ready and willing to do what we needed. However, I think the magnitude of what is unknown is something tough to deal with. Suzanne and I have been doing this for a couple years in the management part. How many years? Is this our 4th year?
Our fourth year.
our 4th year directly associated with coordinating and managing, and volunteers before that. So tough decision for us all, but we appreciate all of the hard work that you've done and really thoughtfully thinking about the musicians and going through all the talent. Wow, the talent that is in just Western New York alone is pretty amazing. It's, as a musician myself and knowing a lot of the people who have been able to perform locally, it's just amazing of what we have here. I must admit, you know, Tony, you got to tell us a little bit about Jazz Buffalo. We are very lucky to have you as our director, and you do a lot for Jazz Buffalo as well. You want to give us a little insight into that?
Well, sure. You know, Jazz Buffalo has, you know, grown as a media presence, if you will, an organization that's designed to build jazz awareness and appreciation. And for the last 3-4 years, it's really taken on some legs for people to really become familiar with the jazz artists, the jazz events, where jazz is happening in the area, and you know, this is really great for the community, because one of the things that we have been able to do is to make sure that a lot of events are community oriented. So we found a way to bring people together. For example, the Hotel Henry Jazz Concert Series averaged between 150 and 200 attendees every Wednesday, one month of Wednesday, and that's a fantastic thing. I mean, those are fantastic numbers for a jazz event. And then we were able to then work in partnership with not only the Northwest Jazz Festival, but the Art of Jazz series. We also worked with restaurants like the Terrace at Delaware Park. You know, we've also developed close relationship with Rocco Termini and the Tapo and the Chandler Street sort of establishments, and we brought the community together there. So it's been a really fantastic adventure, if you will, with Jazz Buffalo. And I would encourage everybody who's listening to go to jazzbuffalo.org and you know, look at the content that's available for people to look at. One of the things that we've had to do, obviously, with local events all canceled, is we've had to turn our attention, if you will, to helping people understand where live streams are available. And so this is also one of those things that we've had a sort of a creative and innovative way of presenting the content, that it has gravitated now toward an aggregator, if you will, of where all the live streams are happening. So if you're wondering, if you're listening, you're wondering where our live streams, well, we've got it all on Jazz Buffalo, nicely presented live streams from around the world. So I would encourage you to take a look at it. If there's any silver lining in all of this, if you're a jazz fan and maybe the quality is not quite what you would want in a live performance, but the silver lining is that you're able to really see and hear many jazz artists that would take years perhaps to even come through the area to see, and really get to see them in whether it's a home setting or a live setting, and you know, in a studio, and really get to see them in a way you haven't before. So there is a silver lining in all this.
Sure. And we hope to, there's one of my kids here in the background, beauty of broadcasting from the kitchen. You know, we hope to do some of those things with lewistonjazz.com as well in the future. Our board met last week to speak about what is the future? How can we incorporate some of those virtual things, perhaps as a fundraiser for the festival, so we can, you know, get ready for 2021. So look for those types of things coming up later on in the year, lewistonjazz.com. Also, we got a live stream right here every Monday through Friday at 1:30. So this came out of it as well. But we appreciate you coming on. This was a hard decision. Again, I tell you that the board of directors met last week virtually, actually. We all met and discussed really what was going to happen and how this was going to take place. We had conversations with our presenting sponsor, Northwest Bank, and they understood the magnitude of this decision too. So we're grateful for their support. We carry this on into 2021. We were able to notify all of our major sponsors and are in the process right now of notifying everybody else. But we do have those that have donated their money. They can either donate it to the Jazz Festival. We are a 501c3 organization. They can carry it over to next year, or of course, ask for a refund, and we'd be happy to do that as well. But big things planned for us for 2021. We will have even longer to really make a bigger and better festival. I don't know how we can make it bigger, but or better. I mean, come on. What's one of your favorite memories over the past couple years of doing all these festivals so far with us? What's one of your favorite memories over the past couple years?
Well, let's see. One of those has to be Monte Alexander. Monte Alexander, as many of you know, is a world-class musician, a true jazz legend, discovered by Frank Sinatra. And I think the funniest story out of that, and why it kind of sticks out a little bit, is as Jennifer knows, we're running around at the last minute, right to the T, to try to get them to, be ready to go on. And here's Monty wanting to go back to the hotel with about 20 minutes to go. So, and you can't say no. I mean, you can't say no. And so we had to scurry and wait for him and get him all squared away, and and get him back up the hill and all that. So talk about sweating it. At the last minute, but
Marty was driving. Marty was driving the van.
Yeah, exactly. So that was quite funny. That's very memorable. But in the classic, Monte Alexander fashion, everything was just ready for him to walk on, and of course he did a fantastic presentation, and that presentation really was a first for the festival too, because he presented the work of Thelonious Monk that mixed his Rastafarian roots and being from Jamaica with the Thelonious Monk, and wow, what a great thing for the festival that the first time he performed that live was right here in Lewiston, New York. So that really is a memorable time for me. And I think if I had to pick one other one, I would go with Benny Green and Veronica Swift. And many people were at that time like, well, who's Veronica Swift? I mean, why did you get Veronica Swift? We love, Benny Green. And I can just remember when Veronica Swift probably finished by her third song. The audience was just gasping for air. I mean, really, because they were discovering a talent who, in my estimation, will be a true superstar in jazz. And once again, it was one of these things that we at the festival were able to shine a light on somebody who now is a genuine star in the jazz world at this moment.
Definitely. Those are great memories. I do remember, people don't realize we time everything very specific. We have contracts we have to deal with as far as what time musicians go on and off and this and that. We also have Keith Bradford, who is our MC, and I write out his whole script. It's timed down to the second. We rehearse it. It's timed. And I'll never forget, where's Monty? Where is Monty? On my headset, my phone, my text, Tony. It was just one of those things. And sure enough, all of a sudden he showed up and walked on stage. And I think I drank about 2 wines right after because it was a little nuts. Suzanne, what about you?
You were blowing up my phone. Everything was crazy.
Suzanne, what's one of your favorite memories?
Oh, well, come on. We all know my favorite.
We all do.
Ilio. I should have brought my picture.
I know.
It's on my nightstand.
Tell us a little bit about Ilio.
Oh, yeah.
He was phenomenal.
He was. And he even signed a poster of himself just for Suzanne.
He did. He sent me a Merry Christmas post.
There you go.
I saw him playing live a few weeks ago. He played from his apartment in New York.
Yeah.
You were in his apartment with him?
I was in his apartment.
Yeah. Now, for those that may not know, Ilio Villafranca is from Cuba, and he's a fantastic composer, arranger, and pianist. And on that particular night, it was another all-star lineup that was just with him. I mean, we're talking not only Ilio, but we had Steve Turade, a fantastic trombonist that was there that night, and it was another incredible night. And he he at that time, again, we were very fortunate at the festival. He introduced to the festival his release that got a Grammy nomination, which was Cinque, which is a fantastic album. If you don't know about it, I would highly encourage you to look it up.
Definitely. We will. I have a lot of favorite memories, tons of them. Most of them, I think we could write a book on them.
We sure
but I
can.
think
Yeah.
We could.
One of the most memorable things, this is any event planner, you do not want rain at your event. And a couple years ago, we had to wipe down 400 seats and tablecloth.
Oh my goodness.
I think 3 times. It had lightly sprinkled. We had to wipe everything back down. It sprinkled again, it rained again. And, it was kind of one of those things like you look up and, to the heavens, you're like, okay, I guess I didn't do it well enough the first time. Okay, I guess I didn't do it well enough the second time. But, we made it through, and it ended up being a beautiful night. So those are just some of the things, we deal with every single year. Something different every year.
Yeah, and we mentioned some of the, obviously the headliners, but let's not forget, some of the things that's been happening on the local front in the last few years has opened people's eyes. I mean, one of the things that we concentrated on is, introducing more women in jazz. We've also concentrated on the next generation of jazz locally. And I think it's a thing that brought smiles to our faces as a board for the Jazz Festival is hearing stories about people discovering, in the Peace Garden, some fantastic female jazz artists that we had in there, like Carolyn Lantham or Sarah Rogers or Sarah Rodriguez. Those that's like, who are they? And wow, we got to get them back. Those are the things that make it exciting for us, and how we also been able to introduce this to the festival the past 2 years is the youth component. We've had the Matt vocal performance team down on Center Street stage, and we've also had the Niagara County all county jazz ensemble and jazz vocal ensembles. So those were really exciting for the community, for all the parents and aunts and uncles and grandparents to all sort of really, embrace their own loved ones and seeing them perform like that. So those are the wonderful things that have happened in the festival in the last few years, is that we've been able to really cover 3 areas that I think are really important for, the long-term aspect of the festival, which is obviously introduce more women in jazz and really introduce our next generation of jazz that's coming up. We got some fantastic 20 and 30-year-olds right now that are, I think some of the best in the country in terms of a community, and also introduce more youth to the festival. So we're going to try to continue to do that in 2021.
We can't wait. Well, we're appreciative of all the work that you do for the festival. Suzanne and I help coordinate it. We work directly with Tony. There is a wonderful board of directors chaired by George Osborne, who is the chairman. And we are grateful for Northwest Bank. They are our presenting sponsor, plus all the other sponsors that help make this festival possible. Unfortunately, not for 2020, but we hope to see everybody next year, 2021, for the next Northwest Jazz Festival. Thank you, Tony, for joining us today. We're so glad that you had a chance to come on.
Yeah, that's really been nice, and I want to just echo for everybody who's probably listening that, how much we appreciate the work that you've both done to really make the Jazz Festival one of the best in the region and in the country, in my opinion. So thank you for everything you do.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tony.
We love it. Well, otherwise we wouldn't do it. Even if at 4 o'clock in the morning, when we're still out there shoveling dirt and garbage.
That's right.
We love it, right?
There's always that one point. I love it. There's always that one point in the middle of the festival where we just want to wring each other's necks.
Yes.
And then the time passes, the wave goes away, and then we're all hugging. We all
are hugging and toasting and saying, "All right, that was great.
It was great."
Yeah, you're right. You're right, Suzanne. There is. Well, thank you for joining. Thanks everyone for joining us.
Bye-bye now.
Thank you.
We'll see you tomorrow.